in the Bible, in all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we are given detailed accounts of Jesus Christ's crucifixion. We're going to look at the 7 things that Jesus says on the cross. Why did people want to kill Jesus? Religious leaders wanted to kill Jesus because he claimed he had power to forgive sins. He claimed that he and his Father were one, and he claimed to be the Son of God, and he healed on the Sabbath day. So they're looking for a way to kill him. Finally, they have the opportunity to kill him. Now, when Jesus is killed, he dies a death of crucifixion. It's a horrific process. The Romans would use this many times. Many people would be crucified, not just Jesus. And it would be outside the city. When people would enter into the city, they would see bodies on the cross. They would not want to do that crime, to be up there. And so the Romans used this device to deter crime, to get people to follow Rome. Now, the crucifixion, what it is you would nail someone to a cross, and their hands and feet would be nailed to the cross, and it would be a death that would take several days of being on the cross until eventually you would die of asphyxiation, which means that you die basically of suffocation, where you're having to push up on your legs to be able to get a breath, and eventually, with all the stress of your body on the cross, eventually you were just going to die of suffocation. Before Jesus was crucified, he was scourged, where soldiers took a whip, a short whip, and on that whip would be several strands of various lengths of leather, and on the leather you would have pieces of iron, like balls of iron, and sharp bones of animals. And on that whip, the person who would be flogged or scourged would be stripped of their clothes, and they would be tied to a post, stripped of their clothes, and the soldier would take that whip and whip as hard as he could over and over and over again. That process makes tissue is breaking into the skeletal system, where streams of blood are flowing out, and it's making the back very raw. Now, after he was flogged, Jesus goes up to Golgotha. He is carrying the cross, and he is weak from the scourging. Simon of Cyrene actually takes over and carries the cross the rest of the way for Jesus. As Jesus is being crucified, he lifts up for a breath, and he says this. Number 1, he says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." As soldiers are gathering around casting lots for his clothes, as religious leaders are taunting him and soldiers are making fun of him, he says, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. I'm here dying on a cross, and they don't know that I'm doing it for them." Now, Jesus is crucified next to these 2 robbers on either side of him, and one of them is mocking him, and he is being mean and cruel to Jesus, and the other one on the other side, he says to the other thief on the cross, and he says, "What are you doing? Don't you understand? This man hasn't done anything wrong. We deserve to be up here, but this man hasn't done anything wrong." And he looks at Jesus, and he says, "Remember me when you enter into your kingdom." And this is where Jesus says the second thing. He says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." It was not too late for that thief on the cross. It's not too late for you when you're on your deathbed. You don't have to get baptized to be able to go into heaven. Okay? That he believed that Jesus was the Son of God, and he was saved. Now, Jesus says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." He is predicting the future, that he will be killed today. Even though crucifixion is a slow process of eventual death, die of suffocation, not being able to lift up, he knows he's going to die today. Number 3, there are women that are at the cross. Mary, the mother of Jesus, and John, the youngest disciple, is also at the cross. The Bible does not mention any other disciples being there. It says that acquaintances of Jesus are there, but it does not say that all 12 disciples were there, but it does say that John, the youngest disciple, was there. And this is what Jesus says for the number 3. He looks at his mother Mary, and he says, "Woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother." He's saying, in other words, Mom, John, my friend John, my disciple John, is going to take care of you for the rest of your life. John, take care of my mom. And from that moment on, John takes care of Jesus' mom. Joseph, Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus. Joseph has most likely died prior to, Jesus' ministry and things like that. He's not mentioned after Jesus is 12. And so Mary's caregiver was Jesus, and now Jesus is dying, and he's saying, John, I need you to take over for me, and he does. Number 4. My God, why have you forsaken me? At this moment in time, God's back is turned on Jesus. He cannot look at Jesus. Why? Because Jesus is carrying the weight of every sin of every person on his shoulders. He is not calling him Father. He is calling him his God. God, you've turned your back on me. Why have you turned your back on me? Being completely separated from God. Where the loving God who created us all has turned his back completely, cannot look at sin because he is so holy. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says, For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. That God made Jesus to bear the weight of our sin for us, so that we might come into a right relationship with God. See, we've all been separated from God. But Jesus is putting every wrong that you've ever done on him, so that we can enter into a right relationship with God through Jesus Christ. He says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Every wrong is on him. Number 5, he says, I thirst. Soldiers dip it, sour wine is on the sponge, and they lift it up to him, and he sips some of that, and he says, number 6, it is finished. Sin is paid for. It is completely done. That I am paying for lies. I am paying for all of that is on me. I am paying for every wrong that you have ever done. Lying, cheating, stealing, gossiping, lusting. Every wrong that you've done. People who have murdered. People who have done the most horrific crimes. I am dying for that. And it is finished. It is paid in full is what that literally means. Paid in full. The price of sin has been paid for. It is finished. And then, number 7, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. He gives up his spirit and he dies because he came to pay for sins. He paid for sins, and he ascends to heaven to be with the Father because that's what he came to do. This fulfills prophecy from Isaiah 53:5. It says, But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. That the punishment that he went through wasn't something that he deserved. The punishment was for our peace with God was on him. That he was wounded for our sins, our transgressions. He was bruised. He was pierced for our sins, our iniquities. And the punishment was on him. And by his stripes of blood, we are healed. We are healed from our sins. Those are the 7 things that Jesus Christ said on the cross before he gave up his spirit and died. In the next video, we're going to look at Jesus Christ's resurrection.